Ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is a story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
We're glad you can have join us on CoreTV News on the hour. I am Frank Omalapia. Here are some of the stories filing in at this hour. Nigeria has recorded a new death from Ebola in Port Harcourt, River State. The latest casualty, according to health authorities, a doctor who treated one of the primary contacts of the late Patrick Sawyer. This brings assisting the number of Ebola cases in Nigeria. Health Minister Onyebuchi Chukwu disclosed that 70 people are now under surveillance in the River State capital.
This primary contact of Mr. Sawyers had evaded our surveillance team in the last week of July 2014 and traveled out of Lagos to Port Harcourt, where, as we now understand, he consulted with a doctor and was apparently treated for some symptoms. A few days later, 5 days later, following a manhunt for him, he returned to Lagos, by which time he was found to be without symptoms. This case would have been of no further interest since he had completed the 21 days of surveillance without any other issue, but for the fact that the doctor who treated him in Port Harcourt died last Friday, the 22nd of August 2014. Following the report of his death by the doctor's widow the next day, that Saturday when the report came to us, the case has since been thoroughly investigated, and laboratory analysis showed that the doctor died from Ebola virus disease.
World Health Organization says it is aiming to reverse the spread of Ebola virus within 3 months, but warned that the caseload in West Africa's epidemic could eventually top 20,000. In a new anti-Ebola plan, the United Nations Health Agency says it plans to reverse the trend within 3 months, with the final aim of stopping all residual transmission within 6 to 9 months. The World Health Organization says the number of infections can exceed 20,000 over the period. The new WHO plan calls for a massive ramping up of effort to contain and defeat the epidemic. It puts a price tag of $490 million on a 6-month campaign, saying the money will need to come from its coffers, as well as other agencies and government. Head of the U.S. top public health body, Tom Frieden, says the Ebola epidemic in Liberia is set to get worse, and many cases of deadly disease are not included in the official tally. Liberia has been hardest hit by the epidemic that is raging through West Africa, with 624 deaths and 1,082 cases since the start of the year. Frieden met President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to discuss ways of combating the epidemic.
Days talking to patients, healthcare workers, government workers, community leaders, and others. The situation with Ebola in Liberia today is dire. There is need for urgent action. The world has never seen an outbreak of Ebola like this. Unfortunately, not only are the numbers large, but we know that there are many more cases than have been diagnosed and reported, and that cases are increasing. I wish I didn't have to say this, but it is going to get worse before it gets better. At the same time, I've been very impressed by the response that I have seen. All of Liberia needs to come together to stop Ebola. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick.
The death toll from the Ebola outbreak raging through West Africa has passed the 1,500 mark, while the number of cases has soared past 3,000, according to the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization says a total of 1,552 people had died in Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria from the epidemic that reared its head at the beginning of the year, while 3,062 had become infected. Guinea has 648 cases, including 430 deaths, while Sierra Leone has seen 1,026 cases and 422 deaths. Liberia has so far counted 378 cases and 694 deaths, while Nigeria has seen 17 cases and 6 deaths, according to the World Health Organization. While the United Nations has commended Nigeria for successfully containing the Ebola virus disease, Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General David Nabarro delivered the message at a meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan. The president, in his response, praised the Lagos State government for teaming up with the Federal Ministry of Health to stem the threat posed by Ebola. President Jonathan assured the UN Special Envoy that in spite of the seeming success of its containment measures, the government will remain vigilant to guard against further cases of Ebola in the country. The meeting also provided an opportunity for the president to condemn discrimination against Nigerians by some countries over recent cases of the disease in the country. He particularly denounced actions such as that which forced Nigeria's team to the Youth Olympics in China to abandon its participation. President Jonathan argued that there was no justification to stigmatize Nigerians since the virus had been effectively contained and never attained epidemic levels. In spite of Nigeria's success in treating Ebola patients, health authorities say the country has not totally eliminated the disease. Health Minister Onyebuchi Chukwu says the country remains at risk for as long as there is free cross-border movement. The minister spoke with State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting insists that there is no need to close Nigeria's borders because of the Ebola virus.
We stop being at risk when the very last case of Ebola viral disease under this current epidemic has gone. But please, let's educate our people, because I heard that even some people now, since this morning, have been holding parties. The party should be suspended. Please, we still have a case in Nigeria, and it may still be possible. It's still possible that we can still have 1, 2, or 3 more cases before we stop having cases, because there are people under surveillance. So if we are sure there's no more problem, there'll be no need to put them under surveillance. It's because there's still that chance that one of them may become sick. We test, it becomes positive, and I will still announce it. So we've done well on containment, but by no means have we eliminated the problem in Nigeria. It's just that Nigeria has a success story to tell the rest of the world. But let's also balance. We shouldn't go into panic, but we shouldn't go into euphoria, just to maintain that balanced, study, disciplined mien and comportment. That is what is required of Nigeria. We are doing well, but it's not over. The problem is not over.
You're watching CoreTV News on the hour. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back with more stories. Stay with us.
You can now watch CoreTV News live from anywhere in the world on our website, www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to CoreTV Primetime News.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click CoreTV, leave a space, then News. CoreTV News, a 24-hour news station.
Thank you for staying tuned on CoreTV News on the hour. Voter education has been in the front burner as the Independent National Electoral Commission prepares for the 2015 general elections. Guest analyst Chiji Okeze says the inability of the electorate to have full knowledge of the electoral process is the fault of the electoral umpire, adding that INEC should take up the responsibility of educating voters and not political parties. Eze was speaking on a flagship program called Digest.
It's a process, and it's something that requires pre-planning. You know, it's true that politicians should at this point get involved, but to what extent of involvement, you know, that we need to check, because the fraud can come in different ways. Asking politicians to get involved now on the grounds that, oh, if people who are supposed to vote for me don't register, they won't vote. But how are you going to then achieve that? If you sponsor advertisements to say, hey, go out there and register, this is the time to register, if you're in this state this time. If you were, say, a national politician, somebody who was vying for the post of the presidency, and you wanted to take out advertisements that will go around the country, that's beautiful. But if you were a state politician, you know, or you run in a certain locality, and then you can do that. But we need to be wary before we ask politicians to do anything. Because if I say I come in and I try to assist INEC in Ogun State, for instance, and I spend my money on behalf of INEC, educating the masses to do what they should do. However, it's INEC who's supposed to do this, not the politicians. INEC is supposed to advertise and educate the public, not the politicians, not the political parties. INEC is supposed to get their materials out to the people or create the channels for the people to reach them, not the politicians.
Also, a legal practitioner and President Voters Awareness Initiative, Wale Ogwande, condemned the attitude of politicians who differ from one political party to another, struggling for power without any ideology.
Who has gone to United Arab Emirates will know that it was a desert and useless place, but God gave somebody a vision. So why don't we now use our political process to throw up somebody that will get us out? Look at the charlatans that we have, all these politicians. They are in PDP this morning, and I call them political harlots, practicing harlotry, shamelessly. They are Mrs. PDP in the morning. In the afternoon, they are Mrs. APC, or what do they call themselves? APC. In the evening, they are Mrs. Labour Party. In fact, they are ready to sleep with PCBA and whatever other party. Shamelessly. And in the morning, they will come out again and be rubbing their pancake. That, yes, I'm beautiful. Any other man that is ready, I'm ready for him. Shamelessly. No value, no idea. They are just shameless. And look at what is happening now. Look at them. They are all running around. All they are interested is in just to capture and to be in government and in power. They have no interest of developing. And unfortunately, it's a short time. Before you know it, is either they spend 4 years or 8 years. After that, they come back, and some of them, they die in penury. They die unsung. There are so many of them.
All activities to mark the 23rd anniversary of the creation of Osun State were suspended as attention shifted to the Election Petition Tribunal, which is entertaining People's Democratic Party's challenge of the result of the August 9 governorship election in the state. The battle started with the main gladiators in the election, the PDP and the APC, filing an application for leave to our Sexan and also to inspect all materials used by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the conduct of the poll. Rashid was at the election tribunal sitting in Oshobo. He reports.
The August 9th election in Osun State was mainly a battle between the candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Iyola Omishore, and that of the All Progressives Congress and incumbent Governor Rauf Aregbesola. As the result was announced, Iyola Omishore vows to challenge the result at the election tribunal. The lead counsel for Iyola Omishore, Afolabi Fashanu, and Wale Afolabi, standing for Rauf Aregbesola, sought the leave of the courts to inspect the ballot materials used for the August 9th election.
We came to seek leave of court for the purpose of examining electoral materials that were used during the last election.
I believe that they could not, by any stretch of imagination, have that kind of number of votes that they have. So we want to inspect all those materials, the ballot papers used, all the electoral materials used. We'll be able to defend in our petition.
The court premises was filled to the brim with supporters of the PDP. The reason for this? Not far-fetched. Iyola Omishore was in court and speaks with journalists on the alleged election manipulation of the APC.
The PDP is there to challenge the result of the rigged election. And you can see that that's the only thing that's saving the peace in this state. So we will now expose the massive rigging, malpractices, ballot stuffing, and ballot manipulation and carriage of ballot boxes to the public to see that APC has no place in this state.
As the battle leaves the streets for the courtroom, both councils speak of their expectations when petition is finally submitted and sitting starts.
After that, will assist you to know where things went wrong, particularly from the side of either INEC or APC. So to foster at least our chance.
When they fight the election petition properly before the court, we are going to meet them paragraph by paragraph, word for word. We are ready for them.
Omishore, however, admonishes his supporters and party faithfuls to be calm as they are coasting to victory.
We believe that the will of people must triumph over the rigging of the people of PPC. And sincerely, this court will determine the actual winner of the 9th of August elections peacefully and in a more civilized environment, unlike the thuggery and violence being perpetrated or created by APC.
The tribunal awaits the petition of both parties as they might have concluded the inspection of the election material. Rashid, CoreTV News, Oshogbo.
Still in Osun, the state government is fully in support of class action filed by about 700 members of the All Progressive Congress against security agents over alleged arrest and detention during the recent election. Senior Special Assistant to the Governor on Research Planning and Policy Implementation, Olusegun Bada, stated this in an interview with CoreTV News in Abuja. He argued that only people on ground can fully understand the manner APC members were treated by security operatives before and during the election.
Other citizens, civil society organizations will go to court. People were traumatized. Senator Adeleke did not run away, escape from his house. He has to sleep in his grandmother's house. It was essentially disenfranchised because of the militarization. That's one. Mr. Fakurede from Ora, an elder statesman who's about 80 years old, he's a lawyer. He was driven and incarcerated, manhandled. There were so many of our friends who were beaten like even Lai Mohammed. You see, intimidation itself is a psychological thing. And if you distort somebody's cycle, in psychoanalytical theory, it's more damaging than physical damage. So 40 billion, I even believe, is even too small. It was a terrible scenario. You need to be on ground. It's rather seen than just being, than you hearing about it. We were on ground. They were bragging. They were not ready to do elections. But the people, it was the will of the people, the resolve of the people that, look, this election must hold and our votes must count.
Reactions have continued to trail the impeachment of the Deputy Governor of Enugu State, Sunday Onyebuchi. Many have described it as ridiculous and a sad reflection of executive recklessness. Olajumoke Olatuji has more.
Barely a month after allegations of gross misconduct were leveled against the Enugu State Deputy Governor, Sunday Onyebuchi, the state finally impeached him. The development was the climax of the 36-day battle, which began on July 22nd when 22 of the 24 State House of Assembly members, in a resolution, accused Onyebuchi of illegality and flagrant disobedience to the directives of the state's chief executive. The embattled deputy governor told the impeachment panel set up by the state's chief judge that the state's governor, Sullivan Chime, equally operates a piggery in the government's house. Onyebuchi revealed that the state's government had budgeted for the maintenance of the poultry since 2011. The embattled deputy governor would tender the state's budget between 2011 and 2014 to support his claims, says funds had already been provided for the poultry the governor operated. The impeachment proceedings by the Enugu State House of Assembly moved on, and ultimately the deputy governor was sacked on August 26. Reacting to this development, the deputy chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the All Progressives Congress, Funsho Logunde, says the continuous impeachment in the Nigerian politics is becoming ridiculous and a sad reflection of executive recklessness.
From what we hear, the governor is sponsoring his own chief of staff, who hails from the same senatorial district with the deputy governor. And so here we are. that impeachment was done for personal motives, not in the interest of the state. And that is the ridiculous extent to which impeachment has been subjected.
A constitutional lawyer, Fred Agbaje, believes that the just concluded impeachment of the deputy governor of Enugu State is a display of the deep weakness of the Nigerian judiciary.
The rate and manner which impeachment has been carried out in Nigeria, regrettably, is to weaken democracy and ultimately turn whatever gains that have emanated from good governance on its head. So it is like what has happened in Enugu State now. Because they say somebody is rearing a poultry. The court, for goodness sake, how does the rearing of a poultry affect the office of a deputy governor? We are talking of things that will affect your performance as either governor or deputy governor. How has the running of poultry affected the performance of the deputy governor? So these are the questions, because we have descended to a level of embarrassing banality. Banality in the sense that whatever comes to the mind of the members of the House of Assembly can become is classified as gross misconduct. It is wrong.
The deputy governor, Sunday Obuchi, has vowed to take his case before higher courts, a clear indication that the last has not been heard of this impeachment saga that has put the state in the political spotlight. Olajumoke Olatunji, CoreTV News, Lagos.
You're still watching CoreTV News on the hour. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with foreign stories. Stay with us.
From the capital markets, we bring information on stock market reports, talk about GDP and economic growth, showcase entrepreneurs and startups, bring on financial experts to analyze and share their views on financial issues affecting the economy. On Business Weekly, we bring business to you.
Glad to have you back. The European Union says it is extremely concerned by reports of an incursion by Russian troops into Ukraine. The European Union says there is an urgent need for a political solution to the crisis on the eastern edge of the European Union. EU leaders plan to discuss the development in Ukraine at a summit that is primarily tasked with filing top EU jobs, including the success of action.
Very closely following what is going on the ground. You know now that the High Representative has been obviously extremely concerned by the latest developments, including reports that we are seeing on what is going on in the ground. We repeat our call on Russia to put an immediate stop to any form of border hostilities. This obviously includes the flow of arms, equipment and military personnel from Russia to Ukraine. And we reiterate our support for the political and an urgent need for political solution of the crisis that would be based on full respect of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. As you know, the EU leaders are coming to Brussels on Saturday, and the crisis in Ukraine is on the agenda of the summit.
And finally, Germany's anti-Euro party, which rejects Chancellor Angela Merkel's handling of the economy, says it hopes to gain a political foothold by winning its first seats in its state parliaments. Voters in Saxony kick off the first of 3 elections in ex-communist eastern state as Germany gets up to mark 25 years since the Berlin Wall fell. The Alternative for Germany narrowly missed entering the German parliament in last September's general election, but made a debut at the European Parliament in May. Analysts say the party, which wants the orderly dissolution of the euro, must broaden its appeal from a single issue to appear relevant at a regional level. A recent poll for the party suggested that it can win around 7% of the vote, clearing the threshold to enter the Saxony Parliament in Dresden and providing momentum for votes in neighboring Thuringia and Bundesbau on September 14. Well, Up on CoreTV News on the hour. Many thanks for watching. I am Frank Omalape. Join us again at top of the hour for more news stories. I'll see you again.